Yay, hello, and welcome to this week Training Tuesday Live. We're magnet marketers. Our goal is always to help you become a magnet with your marketing gut versus being a bullhorn. Hopefully you are all doing well after your holiday weekend, and we have a special treat for you here today, talking about how to grow your culture in your business. Like we always like to say, it's starting from the inside out and how you can grow your business. And we have a special guest to talk just that. But before I let Mike introduce him, if we've not met before, hello, my name is Jessika Phillips with Now Marketing Group and the Relationship Marketing System, and my awesome co-host. He's Mike Gingerich. He's the president of Digital Hill, the co-founder of the popular apps Woptio, Tabsite, and published author extraordinaire. How's it going, Mike?
Hey, doing well and excited to be here today. Excited for our topic today. So looking forward to diving in. And it's always, you got to readjust because it feels like a Monday, but it's a Tuesday, right? When those, the week and the Memorial Day holiday on those pieces. But Brian, welcome. Let me give the audience a little bit of background for you here. And Brian Garver is with us today. He's a passionate business development leader in the healthcare revenue cycle space, also recognized as an expert facilitator, speaker focused on patient experience, organizational culture, employee engagement, and building strong, highly effective teams. We want to dive into some of that today and the culture specifically. Brian's excitement is contagious, as you're going to see as we dive into this a little bit more. And he's going to talk about the compelling evidence of how the revenue cycle plays a large connected role in overall patient satisfaction, financial performance. He's going to bring his energy and enthusiasm to us today. And that's taking him all across the country in different speaking engagements. So we're privileged to have you here today, Brian. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. It's interesting listening to you introduce me because I think a little bit about, revenue cycle to the average guy out there, and they're like, what's revenue cycle, right? Our organization, KeyBridge, works with healthcare providers from patient liability AR. We have solutions for hospitals for patient liability balances to help that hospital through the billing process, help them engage with patients correctly, and help them recover that accounts receivable. So what's interesting—
one other thing to this, I love that you talk culture, because KeyBridge actually, and Brian's from my hometown here in Lima, Ohio, and I've heard him speak on this, and that's why I was like, oh my God, I have to have you on the show. But to give a little context, like he made the job sound very beautiful, right, and what he does and how he deals with it. But let me tell you what this really means, if you don't mind, Brian. He does do this with hospitals, so he helps them collect payments for payments due to them. But what this looks like is him and the team working with people that are sending bills that the hospital's not been able to obtain the payment for. So let's just say I'm getting a statement from KeyBridge. It could be, hey, this is your bill that's due. And eventually it could be something that's like, sent to collections, kind of, if you want to think of it that way. So usually when people are getting those letters, it's not a very pleasant letter to receive. And that people are, then responding to his team members that are doing these calls, doing these letters, all of that. So that's an environment that could feel a little stressful, or a lot of it stressful, if the culture is not right. And that's what I think it's really powerful to premise, like this whole conversation. I feel like if this kind of organization that is dealing with debt collection, healthcare, and things that aren't like warm, fuzzy, shiny, feel good stuff all the time, it can be really hard to maintain a good atmosphere within the team. So I think that's kind of, so hopefully you don't mind when I share that, Brian. I think that's just kind of laying the foundation of what we're here to talk about, that this can be done with anyone, whether you're B2B or B2C. And in your organization, you work with both, Brian. You're working with the hospital, which is very much B2B, and with the consumer direct to, their patients, which is kind of a B2C, if you will. So this can be done with anyone. And when we're talking culture, as we said, like starting from the inside out, I would really love to hear your definition of like what culture means to you, though.
Yeah. Well, Jessika, to your point, first of all, you're right. Engaging patients about, their responsibility of what they owe the hospital isn't always a pleasant conversation. It could be a very, I think people assume that, oh man, that's got to be difficult. But you know what? We really found out that, the most effective way to get results for hospitals is really just through continuing the care for that patient. It's just their post-visit care now. And that's really become the feel. You talk about culture. It's kind of like that. it's like this thing that just embraces you, and it's the feel of our organization. It's how we care and continue to care for the patient even after they've, left the hospital, but now they've got this large deductible that they've been left with to figure out how to pay. So that's where we step in. But, talk about how to define culture in my words, Jessika. I think the first thing you got to think about is how you're surrounded by culture. Jessika, you're a mother. I know, Mike, I'm not sure, but our kids' schools, for example.
He's not a mother.
I'm not a mother.
That's good to know.
I do have 3 children, though. Yeah.
Okay, so you get where I'm coming from. So would you guys agree that your children's school has culture?
100%.
Yeah. Would you agree that churches in America today have culture? Religion has culture?
Absolutely.
How about politics? Do politics have culture?
Absolutely.
Yeah, our government has culture. We're surrounded by it every day. And what's interesting, if you really dive into, human behavior science, you learn really quickly that culture is existing, whether it's a good one or not so good, but it's existing everywhere. And it's driving every day. It's subconsciously driving people's thoughts, their beliefs, which ultimately dictate their actions, right? And so culture plays a huge role in the success of any of those things, whether it's a school, your church, your family has culture. And so the best definition that I've ever come up with that I use a lot when I talk about company culture, to just make it simple, is that, culture is your identity, number one. It's really your identity. It's the way you operate. It's how you communicate with each other, right? That's a great part of family culture and business culture. It's the way you communicate with each other. It's the decisions you make. And even more importantly, it's how you make decisions. That's culture.
Yeah. And Brian Kramer, good to see you on here. Good to see you, Colleen, on here. And Karam, hopefully I said your name right. But Brian Kramer says, culture has culture. That's right. But I love what you said there about, the schools and the government and other organizations, because even if you haven't been in it, and have a sense about a school or a church or, whatever somebody is mentioning, just based upon what you've heard. So as you said here, it's that personality, and whether you've been a part of it or not, you tend to already have a feeling about that organization or that school. And that's why people do make decisions. As you said, it helps you make decisions. Like, with school districts, for example, many people are basing where do I live, based upon one of the big factors that we hear from a lot of our clients is school district, right? Like, I want to live in a good school district. If you're a mother or a father of children, where you're going to live or surround yourself around.
Absolutely. So I think, that's a big part of it, Jessika. So in business, from a marketing standpoint, we're all looking to build our brand, right? We want to be recognizable and reputable and known for something. Well, that's kind of what culture is. What are you known for other than your product?
Yeah.
Other than your product.
Yep.
What are you known for? That's a great way to identify what your culture is screaming.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think the audience here has an understanding of that specifically when they think about Now Marketing Group and they think about Jessika. So Jessica's done a great job with that. And so there's a vibe and a feeling that comes across that you've done well with. And so that's a piece, I think, Brian, you'd agree of what we're talking about with culture here.
Yeah, what's Jessika saying? I heard her say it a couple of weeks ago. Your vibe attracts your tribe. Was that it, Jessika?
There you go.
Yeah, it's not mine, but I've heard it and I love it. And it's your vibe attracts your tribe. And it's so true. And that's where magnet marketing comes across, is that we want in any place that we're working, where we're attending, where we're putting ourselves, in association with, is that we want to operate like a magnet. We want to attract people that are like us or that have the same beliefs, values, goals, to stick with us longer, right? Instead of just blasting a message out, our goal is always to operate like a magnet so we can attract the right people. So that vibe, attracting your tribe, I really love that saying. I don't know the original author of that quote, but I love it.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing about it, guys, is that vibe, what you're known for, that's on display always, even when no one's looking. I always like talking about this when I speak about culture, that, culture is on display even when there's no audience around, because who really knows the culture is you. You're part of your organization. And even when you're in your office and you're working silently and by yourself privately, what the deal is. What your organization's known for, and it's subconsciously speaking to you, and it's driving your passion or lack of, right? It can do that too. It's driving your thoughts, it's driving your behaviors and your actions and your performance. And at the end of the day, that's what we're all trying to do is perform at an elite level in our marketing world in this case. And the best way to do that is start with a really clear foundation.
That's what I was going to say. Like, what do you do? Like, if you do know, okay, really, I've got off the tracks here, right? I've not really been focused on our culture. It's really just been production, maybe, right? And I think more than ever, why this is such an important topic to come back to is that many businesses that have had to work remote recently, like they don't see their team members. They're not, hearing them on a daily basis on what's going on. And they maybe haven't had that embedded, that culture, that vibe, right? That passion potentially embedded in their team as some of the core values. So you can lose a little bit of that. There's friction that comes in, and so I feel like if companies are maybe realizing this, or they know that maybe they haven't maintained that good reputation, or they have a high turnover. That's always a big telltale, right? Like leaving, or even clients, really. But like, how do you kind of self-assess one, and then where do you get started?
Well, I think self-assess is a great question. Where do you start? And it really takes an honest look in the mirror, right? I mean, if you ask yourself, hey, what does this feel like? What does this really look like? What do we really stand for? Outside of our product, what do we really stand for? And then you can also, ask yourself, what's an enviable workplace culture look like and feel like? I mean, these are just things you can brainstorm with your team even. What's an enviable workplace culture really look like? What's it feel like? Yeah. And then you just blast those on the whiteboard and then start asking yourselves, are we there? Are we that? Are we producing that? Is that the way it feels? Are we empowering our associates? Are they passionate? And, one of the things we found is that, the best way to really dive into a positive workplace culture is one of the pillars that we use, which is make their day. There's a lot of human behavior science, again, I go back to this a lot, that shows that, when you're struggling, when you just don't feel like you've got the edge, the best way to move your psyche is to do something for someone else, right? Yeah, not take, but to give, really do something for someone else. And it's fulfilling. I don't know how else to put it. And that starts to build your passion and re-engagement and your vigor about what you're trying to accomplish for your organization. Some things we've done even recently during this whole COVID crisis.
And real quick, even before you say that, one reason why Brian's here, just to give him a shout out and why he's sharing this, is Gingerich has been named one of the best places to work. How many years in a row?
12 years.
12 years in a row. This is a company out of Lima, Ohio, which I say that because I'm from here. It's a small town, right? And it's not just based in rating companies in Lima, Ohio. This is like healthcare organizations.
Yeah, it's national. It's a national thing by Modern Healthcare, right?
Yeah. And they've been named one of the best places to work in a place that does bill collection people. So I just want to lay that out there. I'm sorry.
Hey, Jessica, thanks for the commercial. I would love to have said that, but I didn't want to sound too all about me, right?
No, that's what I've been passionate about. Like in hearing you speak, though, and where this is coming from, because this truly is something that you've put into practice, and it's delivered.
It's a badge of honor, really, because what other proof do you have other than performance results, right? That's really what we take to the bank. But that's really important to us, that accolade of best places to work in the nation in all of healthcare, including last year. really proud of this. I looked at the list, and here it was announced by Modern Healthcare and Gingerich Medical Revenue Care out of Lima, Ohio. And right underneath us was the Cleveland Clinic. I'm like, they're pretty good. Oklahoma Heart Institute, they're pretty good. And you're right. Here we are in a small town. We have less than 100 employees here at Gingerich, but that's proof that this is working, and our results are proof that it's impactful.
Yeah.
Right. And that it's impactful. But back to the couple things that can be done, when you talk about giving, for example, to try to really foster that passion during this COVID crisis. One of the things we did is we had a Taco Tuesday drive-through here at the office, and it was really funny. It was on Cinco de Mayo. It was a Tuesday just by chance, right? And so we have a culture committee here at Gingerich, and that's something I'd recommend to everybody out there. If you really want to get serious about what your culture is doing for you or what it's not doing for you, grab a handful of 5 or 6 people and allow them to make that part of their role within your organization. I mean, people will jump at that opportunity to be involved in the culture and building the culture of your company. But we have a culture committee here at Gingerich. It's called Get Hooked, and they're amazing. We've been doing this for years, and it turns over every year, so we have new, fresh faces. But they organized this Taco Tuesday drive-through, and it was so neat. Basically, they prepared taco kits here at the office in our kitchen, and employees were able to drive through, and they all had masks and gloves and everything. And you RSVP'd how many tacos your family needed, and they created these little taco kits for you. And so you drive through, and then they let it be known that they were looking for donations, not for us, not for our organization, but for the frontline workers in our community of Lima, Jessika. So there's 2 hospitals here, Lima Memorial and St. Rita's. And we thought, how can we help them? What can we do for these frontline workers other than to just say thank you? And so we took donations from employees. We were blown away at the end of the day how much the employees had contributed and donated for their taco kits. And then what happened is our culture team created these beautiful gift baskets. And they did one gift basket for every single nursing unit at both hospitals. And they went out and hand delivered those. You talk about, what do you stand for? What's your brand? Yeah. That's what we stand for. That gets recognized. People notice that. Has nothing to do with our product.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with our product.
Feel something.
Yes.
Yeah,
has everything to do with heart.
A community built in, and your team members got involved so they feel good. And I think that's the big part of culture, is like not just making the organization feel good, but making the team members feel good. And I know some people, this is just like one example. I know Brian has others, but like one thing that we even do at Now Marketing Group is every Friday it's called the Now Yow Yow. Just because of quickly. Now Yow Yow. Now Yow Yow. A shout out every Friday. So every Friday it's a themed Zoom call. And so like 1 week it's sunglasses, 1 week it's hats or whatever, right? Masks. And so this last week was represent your hometown. And during the Zoom, it's like 30, 45 minutes long, right? So not much time, but it's on the Friday at the end of the week. And all we do is we take turns and we ask a fun team member question. So like last week, you were supposed to rep your hometown. So many people wore their t-shirts from either their high school or whatever, where they are now or whatever. And during that time, then we ask them a little bit about their hometown or something they want to share. But then they give a shout out to another team member that did something awesome that week, right? And it's just like a great time where people are like uplifting each other. So it's not something to even, if you don't have local team members, you can do something super simple like that. And you'd be so surprised how much it's uplifted everyone since like the COVID stuff happened. Because we used to do that in the office, right? Like have sit down lunches together. But once we weren't able to do that, we're like, okay, what do we add now that we can still kind of keep that bond and that upliftment of each other? So it can be something really, really simple. But I love your example, because not only were you doing something, the team members are involved with it. We do, Olivia on our team is responsible for coming up with the themes, for example, for the Now We Are We Ow, and other team members get involved. I think that's super important that they have ownership. So it's not something that they're told to do. It's something that they want to do and that they're part of. So I think that was an awesome example there.
Yeah, fantastic. I love it. Now, yow, yow.
Yeah.
We got to work on our name, a little bit of our culture team. I mean, we need something like that, like that's really just like out there.
I love it.
It's good. It's good. Yeah. So Brian, what do you think from a company that's trying to evaluate this now and say, I wonder what we need to do. What do we need to? How do they kind of define their culture, and if they, or maybe they already know what they think it is and they'd like to make some tweaks on that. So any tips and ideas there?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a good point, Mike. Everybody knows, like when I go out and talk about culture with organizations, everybody agrees wholeheartedly that, oh my gosh, yes. Once we get talking about it, they're like, yes, it matters. And they might be part of a culture that's really draining them, or maybe they're part of a great culture, but they know it matters. And so the ones that know they need to do something, they always ask what you just said, Mike. Well, what can we do? I mean, where do we start? I mean, how do you even begin? And I always say, because out of experience has taught me that organizations that just talk about it once in a while, it doesn't grab hold. You've got to do what Jessica was just saying. You've got to have people that are volunteering, that want to be part of it. They want to lead it. They want to help develop it. They want to help promote it. They want to really allow people to experience it. Create that culture team of 5 or 6 people, do a little bit of online research, and then go. Take a step forward. Don't wait for perfection, or don't wait for the CEO. We talk about this a lot of times in hospitals too, is that, any team within the hospital can do this. It doesn't have to be an organizational event that's, from the CEO or the board of directors down. Any group of 3 or 4 or 12 people can say, you know what, let's really stand out. Let's make people start asking, what the heck's going on with this group? I mean, they're amazing. They constantly overachieve. They're ahead of schedule. They do it under budget. They're excited about it. Those teams of people stand out. And eventually the CEO will ask, what's going on? And it's their focus on a foundation of culture. The roadmap that we found, Mike, we found this years ago. It really started, was from the fish philosophy we found. And that was very popular years ago. And we kind of took those 4 pillars and made it part of our part of our core beliefs, I should say, that developed our culture. And it was choose your attitude, pillar number 1, make their day, pillar number 2, be present, right, number 3, and have fun, number 4. It's okay to have serious work to do, and still smile and have that sense of fun, have that attitude of fun, and not take ourselves so doggone seriously all the time. Yeah. And so that would be my recommendation is, create a committee, find a roadmap, whether it's those 4 pillars like we've adopted or whatever else, and then just begin the process and watch what happens.
I love that.
Yeah, I will say that, I think one of the early things that we learned here at Keybridge, at least, was that culture doesn't make the weeds go away. We all have difficult work to do. And sometimes we have work to do that's not the most fun. It's not what we look forward to that day, but it's one of those things. We got to grind it out, right? We got to get through it. And what we learned was that the weeds don't go away because of great culture. So you can't expect that. But what you can do with great culture is learn to appreciate what the weeds are there for. Why those weeds are what make us necessary and allow us to help people and be needed, right? And be wanted, and have a audience of prospects out there that really crave what Keybridge brings to the table. So perspective of the weeds was a big deal for us to learn early on. And I think it's best to really know that right up front, because if not, you head down these paths and you're like, well, what? Work's still hard. Work's still frustrating. Work still makes me want to pull my hair out. Well, of course. Yeah. But it's perspective of the work that really has to be a choice. And I would say that's the other thing culture teaches. Great culture really drives home the fact that you choose It's not up to your boss or to me or to anybody else. You choose your attitude. You choose to be present. You choose to make their day. And that's empowering to people.
Amen. And I do think it does start, like we say, from the inside out. So like if you are the boss or the CEO, I do think it starts a little bit with like you and how you're treating others too. I love that you said have fun in there and be present, because I feel like sometimes when we get to work, it's like work mode, especially when things are hard or, you have a difficult task or something is going on. But remember that, if you are a boss too, that people are getting the vibe off of you, right? So I highly, highly, highly recommend, how to win friends and influence people, like just that book in general. I feel like
oh my gosh,
a lot
we
about
talk about that book
how
all
to
the time.
communicate. Like that book is golden. I actually paid my team members to read it and write what they took away from it. I felt like it's that important just in how we communicate. But in going back to like the work part and what you say in playing, I know, like we have a basketball hoop in our office and a ping pong table. I know you guys have like a golf. We used to have like a golf
simulator,
simulator, and in little things like that people are like, "What do you guys do around here? Just play all day?" No, but we do play every day for sure. And I encourage it because it's got to be broken up. One, if you do have those difficult tasks, and you would be surprised. Like we just can't, as humans today, with all the distractions and all of our attention spans being pulled in many directions, focus on a solid, stressful task for so long and do it productively. You have to break it up. I'm like, go have an afternoon beer or, mimosa, whatever, or I don't care what you do, like to de-stress, take a walk, do yoga, if that's your thing, play some basketball, whatever. We do team walks together. But to come back, one, as a team, here's what that does. One, it helps with the attention. Two, if it's starting from the inside and especially from the head, from the head down, is that it's saying it's okay for everybody to support one another and be understanding. And Brian Kramer, if he's still here, will appreciate that human to human element, and realizing that people are human allows for not only then you to appreciate your customer, but also your team member to appreciate team member and step in for one another when they have something stressful going on. So all of those decisions of just really thinking about how you want to be treated. When you talk about building your culture, I love that you're saying writing it on the whiteboard and all of this.
Yeah.
But just really common sense of how do I want to be treated? What kind of environment would I love to work at?
Right.
And that's the kind of environment that it has to be real or it's not going to be adapted. It has to be followed and followed through on in order to actually become a culture, because you can't just write it out and say, this is who we are now, but not like,
right
by it, right? I've seen this before in so many organizations where they have this very beautiful mission statement and all these things for their team culture, but they're kind of cutting one another off.
I see that all the time too, Jessica.
It doesn't work.
Yeah, they spend all the money on their new website with their new core values and their mission statement, but then you get to know them and you're like, wait a minute, I thought you guys stood for something, but I don't feel it. And so it has to be followed up on. You're right. There has to be people committed to injecting it into almost the air of the office on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. That's why that committee is so important. If it's not there, it's just words on a website or on a wall that aren't really taking hold.
Yeah. I want to add that, what you guys have talked about, what gets prioritized, will get done then. And so, Jessika, you talked about the Zoom and you talk about having the committee, Brian, and those type of things. So those are, you're carving out time for the people. You're saying this is important and you're investing in that, and then kind of coming back to your statement about the weeds, the weeds are still going to be there. But what good culture is doing is it's filling up the tank of the team members so that there's a cushion when that weed takes a debit out of their day, or it's not just running them dry. They've got the culture has poured it around them and has given them energy to sustain them in the midst of some weeds.
Amen. And I just seen a tweet on this right before we went on here, and I was like, Brian's gonna love this. And it was from our friend Kathy Close guest, and she says, "Amazing how many companies who say they're all about customers treat their own employees poorly. We can't create sustainably excellent customer experiences without first treating employees that way. For every $1 spent on customer experience, why the hell are we not doing the same for employee experiences?"
Oh my gosh.
I was
Yeah,
like,
amen. She has got it, and she's right. And that, you really want to talk about what's going on in healthcare. I mean, healthcare is really big on providing a positive patient experience. They spend millions advertising that. Check out our short wait time in our ER, or your experience at our hospital would be better because of our specialist or whatever. But what they realize is that for them to be number one in the patient experience, they've got to be number one at their employee experience. And how are they taking care of each other to fill their tank, like you said, Mike, because their tanks get emptied every day. I mean, they're all every day. What's refilling it? And it's got to come through this thing called culture. That's the only thing. And what's interesting, you look at magnet marketers, for example. I think about what you guys represent, what you do. You help organizations be a magnet, right? Attract great audiences and be very relevant. And it takes me back to thinking about any elite company, any elite organization, whether it's Starbucks or Southwest or Disney or Google or Zappos. I mean, if you dive in and just do about 10 minutes of research on any of those, I promise they will begin talking about their culture immediately when they look at their success. It's never their product. It's always about the culture, the things that surround it. What are they known for? How do they make you feel? How do they make each other feel? I love the Zappos story, but that's a great organization that I follow on Twitter. I don't know if you guys follow them.
Oh, yeah.
They are a neat organization, and they sell shoes, right? They sell shoes and accessories.
Which is what they intended to sell. Yeah, because I love that saying. It's not like what you do, it's how you do it, right? Like it's not what you do, it's how you do it. Because anybody else could sell shoes. There's DSW and all these.
How many competitors do they have?
Yeah, it's still amazing though. To take it from shoes, people always tried on shoes, but they are getting people to buy shoes, without putting them on their foot. That's amazing. Yeah,
they're dominating their competition.
I'm excited about them enough to talk about them.
Yes, isn't that crazy? They sell shoes online and they're dominating. They sell over 100,000 pairs of shoes a day. And when you talk to their executives or their owner, like, what are you guys doing? What's so special about your shoes? It's not the shoes, folks. It's how they make each other feel, how they create passion within their team. And that comes across, their team members make their customers feel that. And people want to do business with people that make them feel that way.
Yeah, there you go.
Because you can feel it. You can feel how a team member is feeling. And they are the ones that are customer facing, right? Whether they're in front of them or not. And you would be surprised how many people I ask, what do you do differently? And they're like, oh, our customer service. But how many customers, most companies don't do customer service well, right? Like it has that thing that's felt and done to another level. And I think you're saying this, we're talking about companies now. This is crossing over into branding. And that's what I love, that this naturally progressed to this, that your culture is your branding, right? This is how your culture exudes within your team and how your team members are feeling. That's ultimately felt by your customers. And now this whole culture becomes your brand identity. And Brian, I would love for you to share just you're sharing some of these stats of what this has done within the companies that you've worked with just by focusing on the culture aspect.
Well, look at Gingerich alone. We've been around since 1981. And we were a Lima-based company. And from 1981 till 2014, whatever many years that was, right? Our company grew and it did fine, and it was here in Lima. But when we really grabbed hold of culture and said, nope, we're going to be different. We're going to define ourselves by our people and our passion and our beliefs and what we really stand for, our company's growth exploded. Right? Exploded. We doubled in size, in annual revenue and size within 5 years that it took us 35 years to get to in the first place. We doubled that. just by focusing on ourselves, our culture, this foundation that will allows us really to be the best version of ourselves. It doesn't just allow us, it almost pushes you along. It gets you excited about being the best version of yourself. Yeah. And what's funny is, we have a lot of competition. And when we go out and speak at conferences for our industry, you know what people want to hear about? The audience they don't want to hear about the product. They know the product. They want to hear about our award-winning culture. How are you creating this enviable brand that people want to be part of? What are your secrets to success, Gingerich? And it's so fun to talk about. And that's really what's driven the magnet, if you will, to Gingerich with our clients is that curiosity. Once they really realize what we really stand for and what we're all about, they're like, yep, that's the company I want to do business with. I've got 1,000 other choices, just like people do with shoes and Zappos, but that's who I want to do business with. And that's it.
Same. It's so good. You don't even have to sell it anymore after that. It's so
good. Oh my God. It's a beautiful thing.
It's great, Brian. We're just getting warmed up, right?
And I know that we're actually almost at time right now. And I know, Mike, you might have another question or two as well, because I just get jazzed up about this. So I apologize. I've just been jumping in, me and culture. But one of my questions is there a resource or anything that you use that you would recommend that maybe brands can take part of or utilize that helps them kind of keep the pulse of the culture or get started on the culture, or something that you've enjoyed reading or watching, anything like that?
Absolutely. We're with the world of social media today, we're inundated with lots of information. So it doesn't take long to really find some information with hashtag culture. I've been able to connect with some great people that have inspired me to look at culture from some other new perspectives. I think the fish philosophy is a great place to start because it's simple. It's 4 things that are life-changing. So I'd highly recommend that. How to Win Friends and Influence People, like you said, Jessika. My daughters, I gave my daughters a copy of that. It's so important for everybody in what they do. I would also state, one other thing, in today's world, guys, it's hyper competitive, isn't it? I mean, your industry you have so many competitors. I mean, it's just crazy. The amount of competition out there in any industry
is what I call them.
What do you call it?
Worthy contenders.
Yeah, worthy contenders. And what we see in this world of giving it your all, extremism, I call it sometimes. Every organization, every team, everything tries to go to an extreme level to accomplish whatever their objective is. And you got to be careful, because that extremism and these worthy competitors, and you're constantly fighting and working, to win business. It can really create a lot of stress with your team, a lot of burnout, and that's prevalent in healthcare. I mean, nursing burnout is a real thing. I mean, these people work 12-hour shifts back to back to back. Yeah, they get a few days off in a row, but man, during those back to back to back shifts, I mean, of really being on point and really having your A game and taking care of people's lives. I mean, burnout's a real thing in today's world. And the fix, the prescription really is, culture and finding that foundation and something to really believe in and fill their tanks, like you said, Mike. So I would just recommend people do a few quick researches online. I just saw an article in the Harvard Business Review. I was just reading this, and the Harvard Business Review cited these studies that are showing that with employee psychological data is showing that organizations that focus on a positive workplace culture are outperforming the rest.
Yep.
It's better for their bottom line. It's better for their growth. They're retaining employees. Their employees are better performers. And it's not anything product related. Again, it's really about focusing on that culture. And that was a fantastic. You can find this stuff everywhere now. I mean,
I feel like Yeah, it's a win-win, literally, when you focus on culture. Like, and I feel like people think if they're going to let people goof off or get, laid back for a minute, that their bottom line is going to suffer. The opposite happens. And if you really want to get a reality check with where your culture is, I highly recommend you do a survey to your team and ask them anonymously. That's something that we always recommend to people.
Great point.
They'll give you a reality check. There's several tools that are out there that'll do it systematically for your team and do a check-in with them. And that's a great way to kind of just check the pulse of burnout.
Yes.
Use resources, invest in those resources. I love that you're saying, like, just look online, like find the ones that work for you. There are a ton of them out there because people get it now. They're doing more studies on work because we're constantly plugged in with text messaging and email that we can't get away from our customer, our client, our boss, or socials, all that. You can't really check out anymore from many different workplaces. So it's really important to invest in these tools.
And getting that feedback from your team is important, Jessika. We realized that early on. It's one thing for management to think culture's something that's irrelevant. What do the frontline folks think? What do they feel? What's the culture doing for them? Is it inspiring them, or is it holding them back and pulling them back? We went to a 3-time-a-year employee engagement process. So we're taking their temperature on a series of cultural type of engagement questions 3 times a year. And then we share that feedback so that we can take action items from it and continue to raise the bar. You just can't sit still, right? It's always moving, and it's something you just have to be willing to move with.
Good stuff. Yeah, as we get ready to wind down here, one final question that's kind of related to our times, and that is, what would you say? What would you want to add to a company that is, they're in this transition with this, COVID-19. Maybe they've been closed. Maybe they still have to work remotely, but there's kind of this, when's it going to stop? Or maybe it's stopping. Maybe I'm moving back, but it's been disruptive. So, what do you want to speak directly to them to give them a word of advice, encouragement for culture at this time?
Yeah. Wow. That's you've really put a lot of weight on my shoulders. What a powerful opportunity I have to speak to the world.
Finish
right?
Yeah.
You know what? Hope is a magical thing. It cures the sick. It allows people to get through the worst of circumstances and come out on the other side renewed, right? Hope is an amazing thing.
Yeah.
If you have it, it can't just be a word. It's got to be felt. So I would say, provide that for each other. In your organization, provide it for a team member. Some encouraging words, some positive feedback, as opposed to, oh boy, all the negativity we hear about the future and the bleakness of things. Once the hope is drained, it's difficult to have any sort of positive outcome and really allow organizations to thrive. So that would be my recommendation for anybody out there, to just really focus on being that type of shining star and a glimmer of hope for those around them, because it's contagious, and that does miracles for people.
You are not kidding. Yeah. I mean, and just a couple ideas on how to even do that, like real quick. And I know we're winding down, and then I want to ask you, Brian, where people can find out more about you and Keybridge, but it doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be very hard. Like, we did challenges each month. We continue to try to incorporate those as often as we can, like in our marketing group. And one was just starting your day out, like it can be part of your work day, with just writing 3 things you're grateful for. And then, just because that sets people in a positive mindset, right? And then we did a challenge for writing thank you letters to people that were in your life, whether they were a teacher that you went to school, that helped you in school, or somebody that's helped your career, but just writing thank you letters. And we provided an Amazon box full of thank you cards. So I was looking at it over here. It's like this huge box of just regular thank you cards. And then we mailed it out for them. But just by spreading that to other people, you feel it in return. We do something around Christmas time with, I'm not going to share all of it, but basically our gift is to give to others, and we give team members things that they can give and choose who they give it to and when and how. And it's just amazing how much that impacts the team and how good that they feel. And it's not something you have to broadcast all over. We're not like following people around with video, like, who'd you give money to, blah, 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 to do a social thing. But it's something that, as you said, hope, when you can just make that a part of your company culture and give these challenges, then now team members are coming up with ideas and challenges of things that they want to do. And we've done cards for nursing homes, like all kinds of things, right? That I'm not trying to share on here for that purpose, because we don't share it a lot of times, but it's something that is part of who you are, and then it becomes what you do, and then it spreads to how you're known, right? Like, but it starts at the core, like you said, the hope part, and just being a good person, like just genuinely caring for each other. So I love all those tips. You are a wealth of information. I love your energy. I love all the things that you shared here today, and I really wish I had like a full copy of your presentation that you did at Online Leadership, because that was amazing too. So I'd love for people to connect with you online, and want to ask you, what's the best place for them to do that?
Yeah, so the easiest way, and I'd love to get some more connections. I'd love to connect with everybody out there to follow up on what you're doing with your culture, how it's working for you, or what your struggles have been. I love LinkedIn. I live in that day and night. So find me at Brian Garver on LinkedIn with Keybridge, right? Yep. And then the other thing is www.keybridgemed.com. That's a great place to see right away. You get a feel for what we do, not so much on the product, but how we embrace the caring in what we do. And you can also contact me through that website as well. So thanks, Jessika and Mike. You guys have been amazing. Now marketing, just every time I learn a little bit more about you guys, Jessika, you share some of these things that you don't typically broadcast, like what you do. It's really impressive. Your culture is obviously one that's thriving and supporting your organization and its growth. And it's funny, Mike said it earlier when we first started. I mean, I know what Jessika Phillips is all about, and I don't even know Jessika Phillips very well, but I follow her on social media. I know her brand. I know how she makes people feel. I know how she cares, and I know how her organization operates and cares. That's your brand. And that's why
that's why I hang out with people like you guys, because your vibe attracts your tribe. So you guys are the same way.
Amen,
my team members as well. They're amazing. And yeah, I thank you so much for sharing all of this information. We'll definitely drop the links here in the comments for others to connect with you on LinkedIn as well as Keybridge. And yeah, I just would love to continue this conversation. I feel like this is going to become more and more important, where you can't fake it, right? Like, it's something you have to be at your core, and that's what people are going to talk about. And we've talked about dark social, all these things that are changing and evolving with online marketing. So culture has to be at the center of it. You have to start from the inside out. So we're going to continue this conversation in the comments, as well as a recap with the blog, but would love your feedback and some cool things you guys are doing at your company. We'll give you a shout out as well. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining in with us this week on Magnet Marketers, where goals always to help you become a magnet with your marketing versus being a bullhorn. We'll be back here next Tuesday, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Until then, have a good rest of your week.
Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, folks.
Thank you.